As for the 29th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, Logan Paulsen, let's see in our first mock draft who the Washington Commanders would take with it if we were in charge. Logan Paulsen there, Craig Hoffman here on Take Command. And we have, for the first time, for those watching on YouTube, pulled up the War Room, Logan. Oh, I missed it. I missed it so much.
Here we are.
Here we are. Our boxes got smaller, and then there's a giant mock draft simulator up to our right, and on it, the Tennessee Titans are about to be on the clock. So here's how we're going to do this. I'm just going to hit start draft, and we've got it on fast mode, so it's going to quickly go through, and we're going to go to the Commanders pick first. We're going to discuss the names that are left on the board, and we're ultimately going to settle on one because that's how a mock draft works. But really, this is much more about the discussion. As we were just talking about, the combine is such a huge data point. All these boards are going to shake up massively a week from now or 2 weeks from now once we're through the combine and some of the reporting comes out on different medicals and all this kind of stuff. So this is as preliminary gets, but it's still worth doing. And it's fun. And who doesn't like fun? So, Logan, should I hit the magic button? Are you ready? Anything else you would like to?
No, let's do
you're
it.
like, hit the button, dude. And here we go. Wow, that's going so fast. So fast. Down it goes. There goes another player. Okay, and we're on 29. And the last 5 picks are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Armin Membo from Missouri, the tackle, went at 24 to Minnesota. Darius Alexander, interior defensive lineman from Toledo, goes 25 to Houston. Gray Zabel, tackle from North Dakota State, goes to the Rams. Nick Scorton, edge from Texas A&M, goes to Baltimore. And Jihad Campbell, who had been available in all the previous versions of this that I did, the linebacker from Alabama, goes 28 to Detroit, which leaves Washington on the clock. According to PFF's rankings, here are the best players available. But Logan, obviously, if you want to look at some position specific, we can go scrolling.
Yeah, I think just go through these. These are interesting to look at for sure.
Shamar Stewart, the edge from Texas A&M, is the top player available on PFF's board, also based off average draft position in all of these mocks. He is their 22nd ranked player. Josh Connerly, Jr., the tackle from Oregon. Colston Loveland, really interesting name, tight end from Michigan. Jalen Walker, linebacker from Georgia. Demetrius Knight, linebacker, South Carolina. Trey Amos and Siobhan Ravel, cornerbacks from Mississippi and Eastern Carolina specifically. And then the last name that I will read in terms of just players available, Donovan Ezaraku, the edge from Boston College. So those are the top names available on PFF's board. But I think something we learned from doing this last year with PFF is sometimes it's worth clicking on the positions and going through because they might have a player ranked way lower than you, and that's a guy that you would take. So first,
let's just talk through those
crop.
Let's just talk through those guys right there. So first off, I think if you're a Commanders fan and you like football and you like good football players, if those first 3 guys are available, like Shamar Stewart, based on my current rankings, is my second edge. So for him,
so you would be sprinting the card in.
So I'd be like, absolutely. He's 6'6", he's 285, he runs well, he finishes hard. Like, I have my little Commanders box of guys just based on film that I think are Commanders players. He, to me, is 100% a Commanders player. He's a guy that didn't have a ton of production at A&M. I think he had 1.5 sacks the last 2 years, so 1.5 sacks in 23 and 1.5 sacks in 24. But a guy that when you watch him at the Senior Bowl, when you watch him move, he's just built different. He's physical. He has inside-outside flexibility. He's tough as nails. Like, he's a special football player. He's a special athlete. And I think the intensity and the passion that he brings are really tremendous. So if he's available here, which I do not think he will, and I think when you look at Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft, he doesn't think he will be. When you look at Dane Brugler's big board, he doesn't think he'll be here. But if this can happen, something like this can happen. Let's say he's got a weird medical. People are spooked by the production. The frame, the physicality, the finish, the mindset here, to me, is 100% a Commanders football player. I think you jump all over that. The next player, and then this is the conversation they'd have in the war room. So I love him. Right?
Yes.
I also love Josh Connerly, right?
Just real quick, Shamar Stewart on Dane Brugler's big board, 9th overall player.
Yeah. He's a freak. So this seems exceedingly unlikely, but if it is happening, then I'm really excited because I think he's a good ball player. Josh Connerly, I think, is a more realistic selection here for the Commanders. He feels like a guy, again, really good athlete, kind of plus athlete, moves well, lacks a little bit of the ideal size. I think he weighed in at the Senior Bowl at 315, looked a little bit like there was some water weight involved there. I think he's probably around 305, but moves well, good physicality, very technically sound. Obviously, everyone's going to remember the play where he gets blown up by Mike Green from Marshall from the Senior Bowl. But outside of that, he's incredibly consistent. And he's a guy that I do feel like, based on height, I think he's 6'5", weight 315, arm length 34 inches, hits all the measurables, technically sound, can move in space, not the top shelf athlete of like a Trent Williams, but definitely has enough athleticism to play tackle in the NFL. I think that would give you the opportunity to move Brandon Coleman inside and really just increase the consistency of that group.
So you'd be drafting him as a left tackle, not as a Andrew Wiley right tackle replacement.
I think he could do both, but I would probably start him there. I think because he played left tackle in college, he's got, again, that athleticism, that frame. Again, he's got to grow into it a little bit, but that's pretty tremendous. And so I just want to also talk about the third guy on this list, Colston Loveland. This is really interesting to me because he is maybe, let me think about the pass catchers that I've done. So Travis Hunter, the kid from Arizona, I forget his name, Warren, and then Golden maybe, and then him. So he's my fourth or fifth pass catcher that I would select here. And when you watch him, man, he is exactly what you want at the modern NFL tight end, right? He's the modern NFL HF move guy. He can play in the slot. He can play a little bit in line, but he's a mismatch weapon in the pass game. And I think about him learning for a year or kind of rotating snaps with Zach Ertz for a year. And I am like, this is a piece you could build an offense around for the next 10 years. I don't think he gets past, honestly, Denver, or I also don't think he gets past the Chargers, because I think the Chargers with Harbaugh, they know him. They'd probably draft him. However, if he's here, this is maybe the best pass catcher on the board at this point. He's a mismatch weapon inside. You can line him up and play a little bit of isolation basketball with him. He tracks the ball well. He's got great flexibility in the upper body. I would love if you picked any one of these three guys, I'd be ecstatic. But Shamar Stewart, again, he's not going to be here. Very unlikely to me, but that to me is the pick. But any one of these three you feel great about. And then also the two DBs that are here are great. They're very Dan Quinn type guys, right? It's Trey Amos and
Siobhan Ravel.
Taller guys, good length, good speed. Again, they play with the right kind of physicality, the right kind of aggressiveness, right? They've got good speed. So if you're looking to get more dynamic there, again, this is, I think, a really good illustration. I don't necessarily agree with these rankings by PFF, but there's going to be a good football player here, someone that you feel really excited about. It might not be Shamar Stewart good, and it might not be Colston Loveland good. But if you were to get a Connerly or one of these, or Trey Amos or Ravel, I think you do a backflip and you say, hey, this is pretty exciting.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing, is it's beauty's in the eye of the beholder in the draft. And so there's going to be an option available that they like, or there might be multiple. And this is the kind of thing too, is at this point, let's see what the little trade bubble is here.
Kansas City, for sure get a trade candidate here for sure.
Yeah. If I can pick up, okay, we'll trade 29 for 31. I know my owner will veto it. Can I get? Oh, they don't have a lot of draft picks. Can I get their second rounder next year if I give them, I don't know, something this year? We can finagle with the trades, whatever. But if I can pick up an extra pick and move down 2 spots, nevertheless, although trading with Kansas City has proven kind of dangerous. I'm like, who does Kansas City want here? They want the fastest guy in the draft, Xavier Worthy, last year, and the Bills kind of regret that one. But ultimately, if you got that many dudes.
Can we look at O-line real quick? O-line and D-line.
I was going to say, I think we should look at O-line. I think we should look at edge, because if Stewart's very unlikely to be available, who are the edges that might be?
And I also would like to look at guard too, just to kind of, if that's possible.
Of course. Here's the tackles. You got Connerly, and then you got Ursery from Minnesota.
Donovan Jackson's probably going to play guard, and if you draft him as a guard, I think he'd be a really interesting selection for the Commanders. He played left guard in college. He's 6'5", he's 330. He played left tackle when Josh Simmons went out with a knee injury. Josh Simmons is my 1A tackle with Will Campbell, really good football player.
Ton of experience. Got almost he's got almost 2,000 snaps at guard in college.
Yeah, he's a pro, man. He's a guy that you feel like you could just plug and play, got the frame, can upgrade right away if you need him to, played a lot of ball, and he's got that competitive mindset. Like, I love the fact that he switched from left guard to left tackle and really kind of let them make a run for the playoffs. You know what I mean? I think that's something that you really stick at. Oh, dude, Tyler Booker's on the board. Like, holy cow. Like, so Tyler Booker in most mock drafts that you read is a top 15 player. I think he's 6'6". You look up his height real quick. I think he's 6'6", 360. And, like an AMG or IMG Academy guy, yeah, that weight's wrong. But yeah,
6'5", 325 is the listed weight here. But yeah, we'll see what he weighs in at. And that's the fun of if we did this a week from now or maybe 2 weeks from now, once we get through all the testing and all the medicals and all the everything at the combine, is we're going to have some different looking numbers on some of these guys.
Yeah, and we talked about kind of the offensive linemen that the Commanders are looking for. And watching Tyler Booker, watching Jackson, both those guys at guard feel like they're Commanders player. They've got a little bit more lower body density to them. They've got a little bit more snap to them. They can pull. They're not great outside zone players, but the Commanders don't run a lot of outside zones. So I think I don't think Booker will be there. Jackson very well might be. But those two football players are excellent. There are inconsistencies to Booker's game, but I think you're betting on a little bit of upside there because the frame, the movement skills, it's all there. I was talking to a scout at the Senior Bowl, and they said, "Oh, I think he weighs 360." Like, that was the weight they had from the school. So again, like, that's kind of what I'm projecting. So you got a big body guy, good arm length, moves well. Like, that's exactly what you want. Jackson, same type of thing. They feel like they would upgrade the offensive line immediately. And I know guard isn't necessarily the sexiest selection, but at 29. Doesn't matter. Like, positional value becomes less important. That's why, like, drafting a tight end, you feel really good about it. You feel good about it. In
some ways, it works in reverse. Like when you get later in rounds,
yeah.
Because it's like everyone else is devaluing this player because of the position they play, but they're actually just better.
Yeah,
and I get it, right? Tight end is so silly. The market on the free agent. The free agent list, and the running back in a way too, right? Like Saquon, it's like, oh my God, the Eagles paid him $13 million, and think about what that felt like when they paid him that versus what it feels like now when he just led them to a Super Bowl. But like, who else signed for $13 million last year in free agency?
I don't know.
Darnell Mooney.
Oh yeah, wow. That's
so
crazy.
Like the wide receiver market, like there is a legitimate chance that De'Ami Brown, if he leaves, especially, signs for more money than Zach Ertz.
Yeah, no, I think that's 100%
Zach
right.
was probably a top 10 tight end last year based off his production, and De'Ami Brown was a rotational piece who had two really nice playoff games. I like De'Ami a lot as a dude, as a player, as the whole deal, but like there's no way in value to the Commanders' offense that De'Ami Brown should be getting paid more money than Zach Ertz. Like, that's crazy. But the wide receiver and the tight end markets are so whack that if you can draft these guys and get similar production to a De'Ami Brown without having to pay him $12 million a year, that is huge versus like, okay, you sign Zach Ertz, let's say it's to $10 million, and Colson Loveland, how much of a discount are you really getting there? Like, it's just not as significant. So like the positional value stuff is real, but eventually drafting good football players is how you win Super Bowls. And you shouldn't overthink it. You shouldn't play too spreadsheet football, and you should think about playing actual football. And that's where a guy like Loveland becomes a heck of a value because he's the 14th best player that you could get at 29, let's say. As for the edge guys, beyond Stewart, Ezeraku, who we talked about a little bit, we mentioned Landon Jackson, the edge out of Arkansas. Princely, man, I got to get on my name game this year.
Princely Umanyela
from Mississippi, Jack Sawyer, and then Tuamalo from Ohio State. So those are probably the top guys.
Really good edge players in that group. Like I mentioned on the Ticket to the Draft podcast that I do for the Commanders, like Landon Jackson might be my favorite player in the draft. And again, he's just a hard-nosed, physical Commanders type player. Ezeraku's the same thing, man. Like great pass rush upside, little undersized, 6'2", kind of that 245 type range. But dude, Landon Jackson is an absolute unit. Like he plays hard. He just plays every down like he's dying, and I love it. And I can't get enough of it. He's not the most bendy. He's not the, most flexible guy. All his pass rushes are like they're either like inside move wins or they're like just hustle plays. Like I was watching him versus LSU, and it's just like, here's 60 plays of just a car accident. And and again, like he's 280, like, and he's 6'7", like, you don't see dudes that big play that hard. So again, Shamar Stewart to me, again, is up on the board just because he's a little better athlete, but Landon Jackson, love him. Ezra Rocco, if you want to see a guy just win in a multitude of ways from a pass rush standpoint, Princely Umanyalan is special. He has the ability to be a special pass rusher, a little inconsistent with the effort, but I think what this is showing from a draft perspective is like, I don't know if these guys will be available when they're picking at the end of the second round, but there is a runway of edges here that are pretty good football players and I think would be great additions to the Washington Commanders, no doubt. So, it's interesting talking about edge. I think we should probably talk about wide receiver and maybe cornerback too, but like maybe linebacker, but like, gosh, like that edge group gets me fired up that those guys are still on the board and really, really good football players.
All right. So let's hit wide receiver then.
Yeah.
Alec Oyamanor from Stanford, Jack Beck from TCU. Xavier Restrepo from Miami, Jaden Higgins, Iowa State. So it feels like the wide receivers.
Savion Williams. Holy cow. Okay.
Savion Williams. They've got him as the 80th ranked player, average draft position 60. So we're talking Washington's second round pick, maybe.
So let's talk
where this is going right now.
Let's talk through this a little bit. Okay. So so Xavion Williams is, if there's one guy that is not in your top group of guys. So what's the guy's name from Arizona? I keep forgetting his name.
Keep talking and I'll get it for you.
But the kid
Tretoria McMillan.
Yeah, McMillan. So he's like maybe the true X in my opinion this year. Like he's special. I think I actually, like, the more I think about it, I was comparing my notes to last year. Like I like him better than like Rome Odunze, I think. And that's a hot take. Chill out. It's still early in the process. But like when I watch his film, his movement skills, the way he tracks the football, there's just something special. He's a true X. Everybody else is a little bit like, there's like a little bit of like a slash. Like they could play X in certain situations, but like Golden, for example, reminds me a little bit of Antonio Brown, right? Like he can win from multiple spots. He doesn't lose any speed out of the cut. So could you play him at X? Yeah, but he's 5'10", 200 pounds. So you're like, I don't know. Xavion Williams is 6'3" 3/4. He's 225 pounds.
They've got him listed at 6'5".
Yeah, I don't think he was measured that tall, but he is a absolute physical freak. He plays running back at TCU. He plays wildcat quarterback at TCU. He runs with violence. He's got this ability to throw his foot in the ground. He has just recently kind of transitioned to wide receiver, and he's got the suddenness. He's got the ability to run over top. Doesn't track the ball super well, so still like learning the receiver stuff, which is why he's down there. But from an athlete standpoint, I'm like, that dude is special, right? And so if you picked him at 60, I'd be like, great. Because I think about adding offensive juice to an offense, right? You can play running back. We talked about getting more explosive at the running back position. He can play receiver. He can catch bubble screens. And he runs with such physicality. He reminds me of, God dang it, we just mentioned his name, Patterson from...
Cordell Patterson. Yeah.
They feel very similar. I think he's got a little bit more route running upside, which gets me really excited about him. But that's kind of the player I see there. You got Jaden Higgins on this list, who reminds me a little bit of Drake London. Like maybe not as physical, but has that kind of silky smooth double stick, can win in the slot, can win outside. Great complementary piece to our guy Terry McLaurin. Illuminor is kind of that. He's the closest thing on here outside of those two guys I just talked about to being a true 2. He's a little stiff, but he can win 50-50 balls. Limited route tree at Stanford. 6'2", like 215, something like that. But
210 on PFF's listing.
Yeah, but that kind of big physicality. So if you were to take him at 29, I don't hate it. I think there's better football players at other positions at this point, but that's an interesting guy. Jack Beck is an absolute maniac. Like, talk about a Commander's tag. Like, that is a Commander's football player. He's tough. He's physical. He'll block. He'll do everything you want. He's not the fastest guy. He's actually a converted tight end. Converted from tight end to wide receiver, funny enough. Unusual transition there.
Yeah.
But
the old Oppo switch show.
I love watching him play football. I love him. Now, does he have enough vertical juice to be a true, like, difference-making outside receiver? Combine will be interesting for him. Kind of a slot guy. And then you got your guy from Miami there. I forget his name.
Restrepo.
Restrepo, who is like your kind of like slot specialist, really dynamic mover in the slot. But there are some interesting playmakers. But I think just looking at the edge rushers, like, I was juiced to take probably 5 guys at 29 there. There's probably one guy I would take at 29 there and feel kind of icky about it. offensive linemen. There's 2 guards I would immediately take. There's a tackle I would take. There's a lot of really good football players at those other positions, kind of at 29 for value. And then corner, man, I love some of these corners. Like Siobhan Ravel, like I love him. I've only watched a couple like cut-ups of him, but
Would
he
you
is
take him at 29?
I probably would. Like I'd probably take those defensive linemen and the tackles first.
Right. Like when I say you take him at 29, like when we ultimately make our pick here, I think it's going to be Stewart. But like if he's the best, like if he's the best player on the board, you're not like, dang, that's all we got left with. Like you're psyched.
Even Benjamin Morrison, like he's a little stiffer, but like
I was gonna say, Scouts Inc. that was the guy we just talked about. Scouts Inc. had them as their 21st player, and they're a first round, like a legit 90 first round grade on him.
Yeah. So the more we go through this, the more I'm like, oh, there's actually a lot of good football players here at 29, and guys that are going to make your team significantly better. It's just about identifying which dude you feel like. What is that? Azarihe? How do you say that name?
I think it's just Azarihe Thomas.
Azarihe Thomas was an absolute maniac at the Senior Bowl. Maniac. And he's the 88th player on the board, right? Like there's some good defensive backs here that have the size, length measurements you want. So I'm juiced. I've seen people have him in the first round. He's the 88th player on the PFF board, right? 88th player. And I think Daniel Jeremiah has him going 20 or something in his recent mock draft. Like there is a lot of discrepancy, a lot of parity in this draft right now, on the boards right now at this time of the year. But man, I'm like, dude, let's get this done. Like, how about running backs? Well, let's just for fun, let's go to running backs, man. Because are there more good football players? Probably.
Cam
they had Cam Skattebo from
Arizona State, Sampson from Tennessee, Johnson from Iowa, Henderson and Judkins from Ohio State. I saw a draft the other day that had Henderson in the first round.
That's what I'm saying. Like right now we're in total, like no combine. Nobody's talked to scouts. It's crazy. But I will say it's interesting. In this draft, they've had 2 running backs get drafted in the first round. Hampton and obviously our guy, Genty. So interesting. And I do think that, and again, if you're a Commanders fan, you want a running back, like look at these names, 51, 58, all these guys down, Simpson, Skattebo, Johnson. They're all good football players. Like they're all these guys, even, Damian Martinez, like don't worry about picking up a running back. Like these are all starting players. Keep going down. Like there are 20 of them. Like the kid from Michigan. Yeah. Mullings is a good power back. Etienne, great pass catching back, right? Like we're in what number?
Some people that really like Jordan James.
Dude,
I think Dane is big on Jordan James. He's like, last year when I was watching him and Bucky Irving, I like James better.
That's what I'm saying. Like there are a ton of really good football players at running back. Like the top is good. Like this is the funny thing about this draft. And I'll say this probably 40 times before we get to the draft. The positions that are not very valuable are very good in this draft. So like running back, there's a ton of them. Tight end, there's a ton of them. Like, so maybe that affects your ability to, I don't know, like mortgage picks differently. Like maybe you take your edge rusher here. Maybe you take your offensive tackle here at 29 because the back and the tight end will be there later. I don't know, but it is an interesting conversation for sure.
All right. So with all that, any of these linebackers you want to talk about real quick? Dude, we can talk about some guys. Logan, this is only 1.0. Like we got time, bro. But if there's any of these guys that jump out,
I don't. So like Carson Schlesinger from UCLA, was that guy Demarius Knighton from? I don't think he'll go that
Demetrius
high.
Knight, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Demetrius Knight. But those 2 guys are really interesting. I do think Schlesinger might be a first round pick. Just based on the early buzz. He moves well, good instincts. Reminds me a little bit like Kiko Alonso. Demetrius Knighton is big. He's like 240. Lacks a little bit of coverage instinct, but good arm length, can play a little on the edge, like physical dude. So, shoot, man. Like we're talking good ball players here. There's a lot of them. And so I'm not taking a linebacker here probably. Maybe the kid from UCLA. The one linebacker I would take, I think he went the pick before. He went
Jahad Campbell.
Jahad Campbell. He moves really well, good flexibility, good hip movement. I want to watch him take on blocks more just to get a feel for the physicality, but the movement skills really jump out to you as a guy that could be absolutely devastating at the next level in terms of in the mold of like a Zach Bond or a Fred Warner, like that type of guy that can cover and run and blitz a little bit. So some good football players for sure.
All right, let's make the pick. Officially, Commanders take command. Mock draft 1.0. The card has been in for 25 minutes at this point, but we were just having some fun chatting because this is a podcast, and the conversation's the point, not the draft. I think that's something that we should remember, boys and girls, as we move towards the actual draft. The point on the podcast is the conversation. However, 25 minutes ago, we were like, yeah, if Shamar Stewart's there, done. He's a Commander. He's a freak. There's no way he's going to be here. Dane Brugler's got him in his top 10 players of the entire thing. So we go Shamar Stewart here?
Yeah, I think Daniel Jeremiah had him in top 10 also. So, yeah, he's the guy. He's the guy I would pick here, 100%.
Shamar Stewart. Stay in your seat. We got an A+ from PFF. Hey! Excellent work out of us.
Oh, God.
All right, when we get back, we will scroll up a little bit, see if there's any names that we think might actually be available for Washington. And based off where they got drafted, is there anybody that we would have potentially explored a trade for?